Okay, CHANUKAH. DAF, Kaf Aleph, Kaf Beit, Kaf Gimel. It just keeps on going. CHANUKAH, CHANUKAH, CHANUKAH. So let's talk about it from a historical point of view. On here I have CHANUKAH, Beit HaMikdash, oil, in the background. Yehuda HaMaccabee, Antiochus the king, Hasidim, the original fighters, and Alexander the Great, who started all of this. This is post video 1 of, I'm not sure, maybe 3. CHANUKAH is a big topic, and it has a lot of debatable issues. On Kaf Aleph Amud Beit on the bottom, we have the question, this great question that everybody loves to talk about, my CHANUKAH. What is CHANUKAH? What happened? And they took the story from a scroll called Megillat Ta'anit. It doesn't matter. The story was known. And a story is told there about a king or bad people who took over, and the Jews, who were small, who were few, were able to rise up against the many and win, which is very true. And it talks about the Beit HaMikdash. It talks about the cruse of oil that they found, the Pachshemen, and that they only found one little, sealed cruse of oil that they were able to use for the menorah. And then it lasted for 8 days, and that was the miracle, and that's what happened. Let's talk about the background. Okay, Alexander the Great. He came and conquered the whole world, right, from his native homeland in Greece all the way to the Gobi Desert in India. Alexander the Great did so he ended his 10-year sojourn around 322 when he dies, BC. And he takes his idea of Hellenism and Hellenistic practices to all these places, and he wants to introduce it there. He doesn't do it everywhere. It's not successful everywhere. What happens is, because his empire is so large, they divide it into 4 unequal parts. One of those parts was in Egypt, called the Ptolemies, and one of those parts was in essentially Turkey, sometimes Eretz Israel, Syria, Lebanon, called the Seleucids. We're dealing now with the Seleucids. Israel, though, had to decide, the Jews in Israel had to decide which way to go. Should we support the Egyptians, the Ptolemaics, or should we support the other people? And they were kind of fighting at war, and they were in competition with each other for the empire, for money, and for things like that. And Israel was sitting in the middle, as it often is. And because it was sitting in the middle, it didn't know where to go. Sometimes it went to Egypt, and sometimes it went to the Seleucids. The Seleucids were headed by a king called Antiochus IV, Epiphanes, to be exact. And Antiochus was actually seen as quite a mad king. They called him in the literature, the later literature, not Antiochus, but Antimanus, which is a ha-ha joke for them, because it means madman. Mana, maniac. And this maniac actually did very odd things. He would dress up as a commoner and go out into the streets and party with them, and he would give people gold and silver or useless objects like some flowers. He wasn't always politically correct, let's call it. But what he wasn't, and also he was nervous about his kingdom, because there were many uprisings all over the kingdom, and he had to contain them. So he often goes to Egypt because he wants to beat them. And he's nervous about them because they're the biggest competition for him. And so sometimes he goes to Egypt and he loses, and sometimes he wins, and he goes through Israel. And often when he goes through Eretz Israel, he happens to stop in the Beit HaMikdash and steal things or take things, because the Beit HaMikdash in those days was a bank. It had a lot of money and a lot of gold. Remember, people gave taxes, in a sense, to the Beit HaMikdash, and it was stored there. It was a very, very important private place, really. So he often would go through and take things. Now, I'm going to stop here for this one, and I'm going to go to video number 2, which talked about why we have Hanukkah.